Hello, good afternoon. I'm very happy to welcome Mandy Williams, singer and book narrator and dancer, basically from the England, but now she lives in California, correct?
That's right, yeah.
How are you, Mandy? Thank you very
Yeah,
much for joining the live.
yeah, thanks for having me.
See, tell me a little bit about your interest and start in the entertainment.
Well, I started as a dancer when I was really little, and my mum kind of introduced me to all the old Broadway musicals, like The Sound of Music and My Fair Lady and everything. And so I just kind of like really loved that stuff. So my sister and I just started doing dancing lessons, and dancing just continued. I went to a performing arts, college for theatre, singing, dancing, and acting, and it's just been my absolute passion since I was little. So dancing started it all off.
Yes. And tell me, when did you decide to move to the United States?
Well, it was a job that I got. I was in England, and I auditioned for something out a performance job at Disney World, Orlando. And so I auditioned for it, and I came out to Orlando to do this job, and I basically ended up staying. And I had to call my mum and say I'm not coming home. And she said, "Ah, well, I figured." Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Tell me about, yeah, I mean, the highlights of the performances and the show you participated in.
Well, I Orlando was really great. I mean, I've done a lot of like dancing stuff, but then when I came to Orlando, there it was such a great playground because they have so much to offer in the way of entertainment. So I started doing some new things that I hadn't really done before. I just been a dancer, and I was able to start like singing and dancing and doing sort of improv comedy and some comedic acting shows. So it was those were kind of like highlights really because it was things I had never done before. So I really kind of got to, you know, just test it out. And the problem is I love doing everything. So it gets so difficult to decide, well, what do I really want to do? Because the answer is, well, I want to do everything. I want to do improv comedy and I want to dance and I want to sing and I want to create my own show. And so, they're kind of like they're all my highlights because, I loved doing everything. There's this big like theme park, Orlando. So I worked for Epcot and Animal Kingdom, doing like an improv comedy thing out there, and Universal Studios singing and dancing, and just a tap dancing show, like a stomp show. They had lots of dinner theatre, so I did lots of like comedic acting at dinner theatres. So I would say that, or even like, special events. I have a lot of special events out there. So I did a great show. It was called Four Girls Only, and that was four-part harmony. I love the harmonies. So we got to do lots of events with those. So I can't really say what is a highlight because it was all a highlight and everything helped to move forward. So I feel like I have a good background in a lot of different things, and I feel like everything helps with everything. So now I'm mainly singing, but just being comfortable on the stage and maybe even having like an improv comedy background, that helps with being able to talk to the audience, this kind of thing. And even like
Yes.
singing, and sometimes if I'm not lead singing, then I got to do the harmonies. But so having the background in harmony singing, it's pretty easy to kind of slot in to that. So it was an amazing playground in Orlando.
Yes. And tell me, Mandy, what inspired you to start narrating audiobooks, and how did you get started in this field?
Well, the funny thing is, I just answered an ad, and the ad was looking for British a British person to narrate an audiobook, and I'd never narrated an audiobook before. So I went to Random House. It was a big one, like the biggest one. I went down there and I auditioned, and I think I was like one of 3 people up for this one book. And I got the call a couple of days later saying the author has chosen you. And that's how it started. And I ended up sort of doing sort of basically like 3 back to back. And I tell you what, that first experience was terrible. I hated it. It was so difficult. It was so hard to focus that much. And I couldn't, after like about 2 pages, I was like, how am I going to get through this whole book? But I really came to really like it, and it got easier every time. And now I've done more than like 25 audio books and got some like good feedback from it. And that started actually, I think it was in 2010. I think was my first audio book, and I've been doing at least one every year. So I'm usually like 2 or 3 every year.
Yes. And I think your dancing and singing help you as well in narrating, because it is some kind of performance. You must put a little bit of feeling into the narration, right?
Yeah, I think that dancing. I don't know. I think it's sort of like an all around kind of performance thing. You sort of have an air about you, which is sort of presentational. So that probably translates into audiobooks, maybe singing with the voice. It's definitely more of an acting thing, because you do have to look at the characters. You have to read the entire book before you start narrating, because you have to give all the characters a voice, and you have to make them all different. And it could be dozens and dozens and dozens of characters in the book,
Yes.
and they all have to sound a little bit different. So I would say probably more acting was the strongest thing that helped with that. But it's really
Yeah.
fun. It's really fun. It's so fun to do all the characters.
Yes. Tell me, do you have new projects you like to announce coming up during this period? You like to share
Well,
with?
I'm really passionate about. I want to do a one-woman comedy show. So
Uh-huh.
I've been writing songs for it, and I've been brave enough to kind of go out to a couple of places and do like an open mic thing and try them out on people. But I actually went to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival last year, because I'm just so inspired by people that just create something from nothing. And the Edinburgh Fringe Festival is the biggest arts festival, performance arts festival in the world. And it was so magical to see, all these different things. Anyway, so my biggest desire is to create something that is mine, and to go and, put that out there in different festivals, or maybe rent a theatre, but to go on tour and just kind of take your creation around. So
Yes.
that's what I'm working on. I'm working on the show when I can.
You know, being like an artist who made a move from Europe and England to the United States, do you have an advice you like to give to aspiring performers who would like to make like a big move to support their career and their future?
What I would say is, for me, I loved Orlando. It was a big deal for me to. It didn't really feel like a big deal for me to move to Orlando, funnily enough. But I think that's because I was only 21, so I was young and raring to go and adventurous. But I guess overall, it's like, is it harder for you to stay where you are, or is it harder to go towards your dream? And for me, it was always harder to not go for the dream. It's like I have to. I think you have to look at yourself and go, is this who I am? Am I going to be happy? I always tend to kind of look forward to the future and think, will I be happy with everything that I did in my life? You know, um, I want to know that I absolutely made the most out of life, and I didn't let fear stop me from doing things that I really wanted to do. And I tell you what, you have to be willing to fail. I've made a fool of myself plenty of times, but oh well. You have to not worry about it. You have to go, you have to take the plunge and you have to just go for it. And sometimes you fail, sometimes you make a fool of yourself. But if you can have a sense of humor and laugh about it, then it's not going to hurt too bad. You can laugh and then they can laugh with you. You got to go for it. If it's what you are and who you are, you have to go. You have to go for it. But you can take little steps. You know what? Little steps are big steps.
Yes, baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps. As long as you're going in that direction, even if
Yes,
you're just meditating on it or visualizing it, or anything, going in that direction.
yes. Tell me, what do you enjoy most in California, living and working there?
Well, such a cliche, but obviously the weather's great. Um, I really actually love the trees and the
Yes,
mountains. I love the mountains. Florida was so flat. Love Florida, so flat. So when I came out here, I really loved the mountains, and obviously I love the beach. If I do feel a little bit kind of overwhelmed sometimes, or maybe with work that's coming up that makes me feel a bit overwhelmed, like in the future, then I do like to go to the beach and put my feet in the water. I feel
yes,
like there's so much nature around, and for me personally, I have to feel grounded. I can get pretty overwhelmed and overstimulated easily. I'm the kind of person that needs to have time alone. I'm very sociable, but I'm kind of an introvert as well. So I need to have that time alone. I need to be connected to nature. I was thinking of going to New York, first of all, before I came here. But the
yes,
idea of being in the rat race, trying to make things happen and being so overstimulated like that was a little scary for me. I would love to go to New York to work, like have something to go to, but to try and hustle, it sounded too overwhelming. So I love California for the nature and the outdoors, staying connected in that way.
great.
Yeah.
Mandy, I want to thank you very much for this lovely interview. I wish you all the best in your upcoming projects, and I hope to receive you again when you have a new project or an accomplishment you like to announce.
Well, thanks ever so much for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of the day and weekend.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.